right. Well, today we're going to focus on putting some context, some meaning behind the Panama Canal. And there's no doubt that in the context of Theodore Roosevelt's presidency, this was a great moment of imperialism for the United States. And while the canal was not officially done until after Roosevelt was no longer president, in terms of American imperialism, it's a great example. Because if you remember from yesterday, which country at one time owned the canal, and the U.S. had to sort of very behind, the bushes, help out? Colombia owned the canal area, but the U.S. helped out Panama in a revolution by giving them money and advice. And the next thing you know, that was sort of the payback for the Americans. We gained access to the canal and the ability to drill and dig the canal. And what a feat it was. Truly one of the great engineering marvels of all time. The American efforts in the Panama Canal. And it did not come, though, without sacrifice. Thousands died from diseases, especially malaria, that was carried by mosquitoes. Yeah, man. Mosquitoes. Sorry, in the other class, somebody, and they weren't like being silly, they genuinely were asking out of curiosity, and they said, so how many people did the mosquitoes attack and kill? I'm like, well, I don't know if you think of mosquitoes as attacking people. Maybe a piranha or a velociraptor would attack, but mosquitoes just bite, and they, the blood mixes, and that's what causes those diseases. So mosquitoes killed a lot of people, but the project was a success. And let's talk for a moment about what advantages this gave the United States. By having the exclusive rights to run the Panama Canal, which is what we gained from Panama when they signed over the treaty for the canal zone. What did America gain? What did America gain?
So how many ships from other foreign countries that would pass through, but they have
Yeah, so other countries were allowed to travel in the canal zone, but they would have to pay a tax, like a toll. If you go on, I know Arizona doesn't have them, but toll roads, if you're driving in other states, you have to pay a toll. Same idea. India has tolls. You just bribe everybody in India. So Mrs. J says you just bribe everybody. In Nigeria, you have to bribe too?
One time, my mom, we were in Nigeria, we waited there, my mom used to pay, we waited there for an hour.
Because and then finally she paid?
Yes.
Yeah, other countries, maybe it's just a little different. It's been told in India, you can just, the police stop you, just pay them, and then you just keep going. I don't know if that's true for everything, but certainly this is not those type of tolls. These are the type of tolls that are run by the government. So the United States could exact toll money, yeah. Yep. What else? What other advantages?
A lot of people would be coming through so they can sell things there.
Okay, yeah, it's good for commerce. It's good for trade. The canal zone had a lot of activity. So hotels, nightlife, you build that all up around the canal. Yeah.
So they have a passage between the States and the United.
Well, yeah, there's the big, this is a moment in world history that's been a long time coming. If you're here in New York and you want to sell New York goods over in the Philippines, you got to go all the way through here, or you got to go all the way around and pop out the other side. Now you just go down right through the Panama Canal and you're out into the Pacific. Look, the Panama Canal is the greatest example. This is one of those words on the board of a conduit. It's one of the great conduits in world history. It connected two worlds. The Western and the Eastern hemispheres were brought together through the Panama Canal. That, in and of itself, is a tremendous accomplishment. And that put the United States right at the top of all of that activity. Yeah.
So what's do they not have
Oh, so a coup d'etat is a takeover of a government. So the insinuation is that here's little Panama, and here comes the U.S. with building the canal because we're kind of running their government. That's the idea. Even though we weren't, that was the idea.
So when the French tried to build it, did Colombia let them?
Yeah. So the French and Colombia had a deal. The French gained rights from the Colombians, but the Colombians didn't want to work with the U.S. They refused to allow the United States to come in. Yes. Last question. We're gonna move on.
It says Roosevelt doctrine. Is that the same thing as the Roosevelt?
Corollary or the big stick policy? Yeah. So here's the official seal. This is like the flag of the Panama Canal Zone, which I want to demonstrate the point here. You got to realize the Canal Zone was all American soil. We owned the Canal Zone. The United States, I shouldn't say we. The United States owned the Canal Zone. That was like 7 foot in Arkansas. That was like 7 foot in Alaska. American territory. So the Canal Zone, which the United States operated from 1903 all the way up to 1999, 96 years the United States controlled the Canal Zone. Military bases, American schools. The Canal Zone really changed Panama. In fact, I had a very personal experience with this. When I taught in the boarding school in Connecticut, way back in 2010, so my first year ever teaching, I had multiple students from Panama. And they all said, I was very impressed with how good their English was. I said, did you guys take English growing up? I said, of course. I said, the best schools in Panama are American schools that were set up during the Panama Canal Zone era. So, that was very interesting to learn from these kids. And, I used to pick their brains all the time because, they grew up after the canal was handed over to the Panamanians, which I'll get into that in a moment. So, they benefited from all that education and English culture that was brought into the Canal Zone. But remember, that's the trade-off, right? Wherever American culture and English language and industry and trade went, the people who lived there had that crisis of culture, that their culture was being taken away from them a little bit, here and there. Eventually, in some cases, a lot of it was being taken away. But you got to realize, this was American soil. So it was our territory. We owned the Canal Zone up until 1999, before you were all even born. And this is actually, I mentioned my former students, and that's, I think, kind of a cool personal connection to the Panama Canal Zone. But I've never been there. But I tell you, there's actually like a really good piece of Arizona connection to the Panama Canal Zone, because one of our most famous celebrities, politicians, was born in the Panama Canal Zone. For 1/2 team trivia point. You're stretching your arm, right, Robert? See Sean the third. For 1/2 team trivia point, what Arizona celebrity / politician was born in the Panama Canal Zone? I think the video, I don't know, was it Ovechkin or Yashin? Okay, so Ovechkin, you think he beat you?
Yeah.
Bobby Rutherford III, for the record, was right up there. You get so nervous, Yashis. Say that again? John McCain is correct. John McCain. What team?
Delta.
Oh, Delta.
Wait, Mr. Schmidt, don't the other
What?
They don't have opportunity at like.
What's so hot?
I said won't the other
Well, they're watching this maybe tonight or tomorrow. So when John McCain ran for president in 2008, one of the issues that came up was the uniqueness of his birthplace, because according to the Constitution, you have to either be born in America or be naturalized, which means you're born on foreign territory where that's part of America. So McCain's father was in the military, and he was born in the Panama Canal Zone, which at the time was American. If, somebody today was born in the Panama Canal Zone, they're not American, they're born. In the 1970s, President Jimmy Carter signed over control of the Panama Canal Zone to Panama. It was a sign of goodwill, good faith between the United States and Panama. And that deal was that in 1999, the United States would give it back to Panama, and we did. So that was signed in the 1970s. That was when the treaty was signed, and then 1999 was officially the turnover of the canal. Yes, Ron. Yeah, the treaty, I think, was signed in 70, 77, 78, late 70s. 99, though, was the transfer. Yes.
What's the treaty?
I don't know. You don't need to look into the treaty. It's Panama Canal Treaty, that's fine. Yes, Robert Z. Sean.
Okay, this might sound like a stupid question, but
Well, the video will determine. There's video evidence of your questions.
was there any name for the waters of the mixed water between the Atlantic and the Pacific Canal?
The Panama Canal Zone. Yeah.
Was there like a name for the water?
Panama Canal Zone.
Water. Okay,
I'm sorry, are you the name of the water? Like, was it called like...
cool. Was it called like
Was it called like...
water? Was it named
Yes, the Canal Zone. Look, I just have a couple of modern day pictures. These are cruise ships passing through. So the canal has been updated to, it's been modernized and renovated, so to speak, to accommodate bigger ships than back in the 19-teens. You can actually take cruises. I've always wanted to do. I thought this would be a pretty cool vacation. You guys know me. I'm always traveling and doing something, living the lifestyle of the rich and famous. Here's a teacher. Celebrity status every time. Zac Efron's look-alike. That's what gets me in everywhere. I say, I can't pass for him. He's way too good looking. And I say I'm his cousin, and they're like, "Oh, is Zach coming?" Yeah, sure, he'll be here.
It's like
Matt Efron, I'm his cousin. I pass as his cousin, right? Like, I can't pull off.
I mean cousin.
I can't pull off Efron. I'm not that shredded, and he's got like the Baywatch thing going. I'm not. I got the teacher. I'm a teacher. I got to deal with you rugrats all the time. Teacher. Someday maybe I'll take a cruise to the Panama Canal. I'd say the canal remains an absolute important part of global trade. And I thought this was kind of cool. I forgot to show this. Land divided, the world united. I think that was a cool slogan for the Panama Canal Zone. Make no mistake, this is a classic case of imperialism, the United States taking over territory in another country, trying to flex our muscles, grow our overseas territories. I think I have another canal picture, just to give you the extent of the canal. It really is, without a doubt, one of the greatest engineering achievements maybe in world history. I mean, it really was. No one thought this could be done, and it changed the world. And certainly today, is it as important? No, because there's airplanes. But you still have to transport big hauls, and you still have to, ship large containers of goods on the water. I mean, water trade, water commerce. The importance of that is never going away. Keep that in mind next year in AP World History, and that's always something that I'd argue is one of the most important themes of that class. But anyways, the canal would eventually be given back to the Panamanians, and again, it remains, I would say, a crowning moment in Theodore Roosevelt's presidency. What did you guys think about the video yesterday? What were your thoughts on him going down there? I mean, I know we talked about him as like sort of this. He's not all perfect with him. He was a social Darwinist. He did a lot to improve the position of the United States in imperialism. But what did you think about the fact he took a trip down there and got on the ditch digger? What were your thoughts on all that? And by thoughts, I'm not looking for this thumbs up. That's not a thought. Express yourself. Yes, Rania.
I thought it was like cool cool because like if president's actually getting to see like in person like what he's starting, I guess, or like.
Well, yeah, I mean, he really pushed for the canal. There's no doubt that Roosevelt was behind the movement to build the canal. So pretty cool to see him like go down there and take a look in person. Okay, what else? J-Bo?
I was kind of surprised. Like, I thought he would like maybe reward the workers with like maybe like food or something, but like he
Food? What do you? So he's gonna bring like sacks of grain and just start. Here you go.
So like he motivated them.
Is that not enough of a reward for you?
No, that is. No, I meant like he motivated them, which was like better. Like,
According to the way the story's told, yeah, he gave those speeches and motivated them. You'd rather give them food. They'd probably rather have alcohol or something like that, or drinks. I don't know about food. You know, I think
A lot of money though.
Yeah, it's like,
maybe a little bit of that is a common tactic. I don't know. I guess I don't know. I think his presence there, based on what the testimony we had yesterday in the video, I think that people definitely were excited to see him. I mean, hey, how about that? The first time ever an American president went outside the country. That's pretty. I wouldn't say record-breaking, but
sad.
pretty lit. Yes.
No,
lit.
How is that sad? So much is sad.
Sad.
Yeah, exactly. They have to wait till like 1900
you guys
someone
hear
to
about
leave the
that?
country.
Well, not some of the presidents.
No, wow.
Yeah, it was so
Yes, Matt. You think that nobody ever left the country before 1900? Yeah. What else? Reactions? Pickle.
Oh, I got him.
Okay.
When we were talking about
I'm surprised that he actually wanted to, like, he snuck away from, like, all of everything and, like, went to, like, the worst parts of the family.
Yeah, and I think that's where that machismo, manly man's man. He really felt like he had to go out there and show that he was a man, and kind of like he was the boss, and sneaking away from the tour guides, and going at its rainiest season, and then of course him climbing into the machine. That I'm gonna go do this. Machismo, right? I can do this in his little white suit. Machismo.
Machismo.
Jeez.
Yeah, last thought by Shiv.
It'd been cool to be like a worker, like one day you're just like working, but the
Undercover
next day you're the
boss.
president.
Oh, like undercover boss. Yeah. Yeah, and look, I mean, nowadays we've become, I would say, almost there's an expectation that the president does these things. That they show up at steel plants, or they show up at car factories, they show up at ball games, they show up at schools. What? They show up at these events to give some face time. And I think that's Roosevelt's legacy. He pushed the presidency towards that direction. Unquestionably. Yeah, okay, I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself. I'm sorry, Zishan, we gotta move forward. I'm sure you're gonna ask me what kind of hamburger he ate.
What was the name of the lab?
What was the name of his first parrot?
Wait, do I ask a question or do I just?
Whatever you want, Pickle. It's your world, we're living in it.
Is he pulling a bunch of ships in the future?
Yeah, like these are all warships or like big American. We thought about Roosevelt wanted to build a navy. He's just leading it all into Panama. Speak softly, carry that big stick. Maybe in this case, it's speak softly, carry that big shovel. But look, Roosevelt had his time. The canal was finished after he was president. But that's our next segue. Who comes after Roosevelt? Roosevelt actually retired in 1908. He decided not to run again. But the Republican Party, which, think about it like this. Republican Party, McKinley, with the Battle of the Gold Standard, won in 1896. McKinley in 1900. Roosevelt in 1904. That's three straight Republicans. Three straight Republicans that won. 1908, the Republicans nominated a congressman from Ohio who had served as the governor of the Philippines under Theodore Roosevelt. Does anybody know who is going to be the Republican and next president of the United States?
Actually, I don't want to guess.
Okay. Yes, William Howard Taft.
300 pounds.
I knew I shouldn't have guessed.
Take your right to Bill.
I was gonna say
His name is Bill. By this side.
No, it's good.
These are two campaign posters for William Howard Taft. Bill. You know, right. Bill short for William.
What?
Hold on. I understand that a lot of you are, you grew up in different country or different, cultures. William can be shortened to Will, Willie, Bill, Billy.
Like how.
But you guys thought there was a name like Billiam? Bill is short for William. Anyways. Now this particular sign right here says a lot about Taft. Taft was sort of considered to be like Roosevelt's heir apparent. Roosevelt had kind of selected Taft to carry on the Republican Party in the next election. And I like how they take Taft and make it an acronym, right? Take advice from Teddy. That's pretty funny. But here's the thing about William Howard Taft. There's a lot of urban legends about this guy. And let me show you the election results, and then I'll tell you about those urban legends. Now, first of all, Taft ran up against an old Democrat foe. Third time, not the charm for William Jennings Bryan. He's back, baby. Yeah, he's the new Henry Clay. Yeah, he's the new Henry Clay. What, DK?
Isn't this his third election in a row?
No, he didn't run in 1904. He went 96, 1900, 1908. All three taking the L, baby.
Wait, he took that one with the standard.
Battle of Standards, right?
And then the silver guy, right?
Yeah, the silver guy, cross the gold. Consider this. If you add up William Jennings Bryan and Henry Clay's losses, right, that's 6 presidential losses combined. That's crazy when you think about Clay and Jennings Bryan. Considering there's 45 presidential elections in American history.
It's another election with 2 Williams?
The Battle of the Williams, yes.
Again. What are the chances?
But hey, think about this, right? There's been 45 presidential elections. Do the quick maths. So if you have 6 presidents' elections lost by either Clay or Bryan, what's the percent of that? What's 6 divided by 45? No, Clay lost 3. Yeah.
7.5. Minus 1.
7-ish?
7.
Alright, so 7-ish percent.
Whatever.
So consider the fact that
It's like 17. Every 7 elections.
William Jennings Bryan or Henry Clay lost.
Oh.
Yes?
Yes.
How is it 45? Yeah, but most of the presidents were 2.
Oh, right. You're right, because Trump is 45. But that includes those accidental presidents. So we've actually had less elections than 45. We've had,
Some presidents have run twice.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but
It's still an election, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know off memory how many actual elections there were.
Well, 17, 19.
One of you math nerds figure it out, all right? Alright, while they're working, we'll continue. So let me just point out something here. Again, we've got this sort of sectionalism going on. The South votes almost all Democratic. The West, Jennings Bryan got a couple votes in the West because of populism. But it's Taft's election. He wins pretty handedly, 66%. And I want to clear up a couple things about Taft, a couple myths and rumors about Taft. Taft doesn't get enough credit. Taft doesn't get enough credit for the career he held. First of all, this is a great piece of dinner party knowledge about William Howard Taft. Fellas, if I can hear you, that means you're talking too loudly. So think it through mentally, because you're going to miss what I'm going to say about Taft. I don't mind you working on the math problem. But here's the deal about Taft. William Howard Taft has the distinction of being the only politician ever in American history. Now, get ready for this. One of the great dinner party knowledge top questions of all time. Taft was the only the only man to ever serve all three branches. He was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, he was a president, and he was a congressman. Taft was at all three levels of the federal government. He started out as a congressman, he then became the president, he was elected in 1908, and then after he was president, he served as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. What a remarkable career. And here's a guy we don't often hear about. And part of that is he only had one presidency. He wasn't reelected. And again, it's sad to say, but most people know him more for like his weight and his robust size.
I like his mustache though.
Well, he was a big man. Okay, he was 300 sacks of potatoes.
Big man.
And you know, there's this urban legend about Taft that he once got stuck in a bathtub. Look, it's not true. And I know I've heard the story.
How do you know?
Because I read. Because it's my job to look up these things.
Well, you can get stuck in a bathtub and be like, hey guys, I just got stuck in the
Okay,
bathtub.
for the record, you're right on camera, so you're challenging me on camera. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Tang, today Madison questioned my authority in class. Here's video evidence. The topic. Let's see that. So, Taft. I feel like I'm doing. If I don't clear up this bathtub thing, I'm sure that Brick one day can be sitting around a dinner party, and he can. Oh yeah, William Howard Taft got stuck in a bathtub, and then someone's going to say, "Well, actually, you're wrong." Because I don't want that to happen, Brick. I don't want that to happen. So, the legend about Taft in the bathtub. I've heard such extreme stories that they had to actually cover him in butter to get him out. This is not true. It's not true. The origin of the bathtub story stems that one time when Taft was taking a trip on a cruise, like to the Philippines. Because he was so portly and large a figure, he had to get a customized bathtub. And so the rumors just kind of cascaded from there. Look, Taft was a big guy, but that's not what I wanted. I want you to remember Taft for a couple things. One, he's Republican president after Roosevelt. Two, he's the only man to serve all three branches. That's remarkable. And also, great piece of little sports trivia here. William Howard Taft was the very first president to throw out the first pitch at a baseball game, which is like a ceremonial way to begin the game. Oftentimes they'll bring out like celebrities, politicians, guests, like random drawings, contest winners, and like they stand there and they throw the ball on the field, and it's how the game kind of, hey, okay, let's get the game started. Taft is the first president to ever do this. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Back then, though, they didn't come on the field. They would like stand at like their little seat, and then they would throw it onto the field. Now, like, the ceremonial first pitch goes out on the pitcher's mound, they throw the pitch, and then the game starts. So pretty cool. Think about that next time you're at a baseball game.
Did people like Taft?
That's a good question. Was he likable? The answer is yes and no. Taft was one of those like didn't do anything like to harm himself, but also at the same time wasn't exactly like a commanding presence. Roosevelt. A lot of people loved Roosevelt. Now, a lot of people didn't like him too, but that's the case about everybody. Roosevelt had that like presence, like machismo, and Taft was a little bit like more reserved. He was actually very reluctant to even go and run for the president. His wife really pushed him to run because the ambition can sometimes trickle down to our spouses, and Taft was a little bit reluctant. He wasn't big in the spotlight so much. Roosevelt loved the spotlight. That was his thing. But let's talk about imperialism. And we're going to talk first about Taft's policy. Whereas Roosevelt flexed the muscles with the big stick, policy in the military. Taft, his version of imperialism came down to money. Taft's imperialism policy was known as dollar diplomacy. And the idea behind dollar diplomacy was the United States should spend its money on other countries, helping build up other countries, helping invest money and build, send your companies into other countries. And the idea would be, if the United States is investing in other companies, then what's the return for us? What does the United States get out of this deal? Yeah, we get more trade, exactly. We'll help you with our money, you'll give us good trade rights. Taft kind of pioneered this idea. And what's really fascinating about this, this is all based on the time period of Taft. You can see that the Latin America and the Caribbean, over $1 billion investment in that area. Next would be Canada and then Europe. And here's kind of the breakdown of. We only have 5 minutes left in class, don't we? 14. And here's the breakdown of the goods that the United States were trading and exchanging there. So, dollar diplomacy is an ID term you want to really be attached to with Taft. If you see dollar diplomacy, that's something that Taft initiated. That was his policy. That was a new form of imperialism. Not all imperialism meant, muscle flexing, machismo. We got the bigger ships. Imperialism also included, we got the bigger bank accounts. And a great map to demonstrate this here is what you see right up top. Latin America we know is our playground. That was where the United States was going to imperialize. And we weren't the only countries there. France, Britain also had colonies. But I want you to take a look at the map here. We know that we only had Puerto Rico. That was the only American territory. But all this shaded purple or pink, these are all regions which the United States had heavy trade influence. And these territories, including the islands and then also parts of Central America, were what were known as banana republics. This is also something that Taft kind of started. Well, Roosevelt started it, but Taft kind of really encouraged the growth of these businesses in these areas. So the name Banana Republic, if you see that in history, it's not necessarily referred to the clothing company, Banana Republic. It's actually territories in the Caribbean and Latin America. And surprise, surprise, one of the goods that were being exported, bananas, fruits. Apparently saying the word banana gets you guys excited. Matt, so we get this all down? Dollar diplomacy, banana republics. Yes, DK. I'm not ready yet for the math results, so almost. One thing to always keep in mind about imperialism. One of the American goals throughout the imperialism process was to protect our business interests. We wanted to ensure that the United States had good trade opportunities. That's why the Americans have the Opendoor Policy in China. That's why the United States wanted to protect itself in the Caribbean and Latin America. And if we weren't protecting our business interests with our military, we were protecting our business interests with our bank accounts, our money. So keep dollar diplomacy in mind with Big Daddy Taft. So, Taft keeps imperialism going. But in 1912, Taft was up for re-election. What do we call a person who is currently serving in office that's up for re-election? It's one of the key words we put on the board recently. What do you call that kind of person? They're currently serving, but they're up for re-election. They are the incumbent. Yes, the incumbent. Incumbent. So in 1912, William Howard Taft is the incumbent. But, as you know, I love those wild and crazy elections. The 1912 election is one of those wild and crazy elections. Because we're going to have three serious candidates. Three serious candidates to run for president. Three serious candidates. William Howard Taft was the Republican Party nominee. The Democratic Party nominee was Woodrow Wilson. And we're going to have a third party candidate. A big time third party candidate. Anyone want to take a guess as to who the big time third party candidate was? Ninja? Any guesses? Ladies, gentlemen, Ninja is working through a problem in her head right now. It's very distracting to have you murmuring around, scurrying together. Ninja, any guesses? Big time third party candidate. A surprise third party candidate. Oh, you're asking for a hint. Very crafty of you, Ninja. Yes, we've mentioned this person's name quite a lot recently. Let's give us a guess for the sake of this. Ninja, you're just not even going to give us a guess? What? Mark Twain? No, Ninja? Rish? Yes! How about this? Yeah, he was done so. He retired. But that didn't mean he was done forever. So, 1912 election is a doozy. It's a doozy. We've got the incumbent, William Howard Taft. We've got the Democratic Party candidate, Woodrow Wilson. And we've got a third party candidate, Theodore Roosevelt. Oh, and by the way, there was also a fourth candidate that I'll mention, but he was sort of like a bit more minor compared to Roosevelt and Taft and Wilson. Now here's the thing. Roosevelt had been a Republican. But within each political party, there's an election to see who goes and gets elected. It's called a primary vote. Roosevelt didn't win that, and so he said, you know what? Fine, I'll start my own political party because I'm Theodore Roosevelt. And he called this political party, it's one of the great third party names ever. He called this political party the Progressive Bull Moose Party. The Progressive Bull Moose Party. So here are the candidates, from left to right. There's Theodore Roosevelt with the moose. There's Big Daddy Taft with the elephant, symbol of the Republican Party. I'll get to our guy with the goat right here. And there's Woodrow Wilson riding the Andrew Jackson donkey.
Big man.
The goat guy is a former labor union leader that rose to major prominence thanks to the Pullman strike. I forewarned you that this guy was going to run for president many times, including once from jail. John who? John Muir was the environmentalist guy. John Wilkes Booth, who said that? John Wilkes Booth killed Lincoln and they got killed. Eugene Debs. Eugene Debs. I don't know. I don't know the story around the goat. So here's the story of the bull moose, though. Nathan, son. The bull moose has always been like for the 8-bush kids, sort of like, why would he call it the bull moose party? Well, Roosevelt, as we know, was Mr. Machismo, Mr. Manly Man's Man. And I think at one time he actually referred to himself as a bull moose. He was as strong as a bull moose. And the name just stuck. The name just stuck. So we can add the bull moose to the zoo along with the elephant and the donkey. Yes, that's a donkey, there's the elephant. And here are the results. Oh, okay, sorry. Forgot before we got the results. So who was Woodrow Wilson? A little background on him. Woodrow Wilson was a Democrat from New Jersey. Prior to running for president, his biggest role was, he was, I wouldn't say famous, but he was well known for being the president of Princeton College. Which is kind of funny because from what I've read about his time as president of Princeton, Wilson was very unpopular amongst the faculty. They didn't like him very much. So who would have known that he'd go on to run for president of the United States? Now I love these. You gotta respect, the hustle of the campaigns. We had our activity with that with William Henry Harrison, touting Wilson as a progressive. Don't forget, we're in the progressive era. That was very important to people at the time. But how about the one on the right? Talk about a little bit overzealous, maybe. I think we've got another Washington, and Wilson is his name. So, yes, we're comparing Woodrow Wilson, good old Woody Wilson, with George Washington.
Let's go.
All right. That's a bit aggro. That's a bit aggressive. And while Wilson did wear glasses, I certainly don't think he had the magic power of taking off his glasses and making grown men stop crying. Oh, no, he made them cry, right? He made them cry by taking off his glasses. Yeah, he put on his glasses and made them cry. So Woodrow Wilson is the Democratic Party candidate. He's here to break up the streak. Four in a row for the Republicans, and Wilson will be, in fact, successful. In fact, it's not even close.
Dude, Taft is
Now, I'll tell you what. This is a butt whooping. Wilson really wreaks havoc. Taft, this is the worst, mark my words, this is the worst success of an incumbent in American history. No incumbent ever suffered such a colossal defeat. Taft got destroyed. Arizona's the state now. Love it. So, Roosevelt won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in parts of California. So that's one of the more successful third-party elections ever for the Bull Moose Party. But Wilson took full advantage. Remember, we're on camera here. I can hear all these voices. We can have the NSA trace and do voice recognition for all of you.
Let's go.
Wilson no doubt benefited from the fact that Roosevelt and Taft were splitting votes. And if you look at the popular vote, I'll get to Drewby's question, then David will inform us on the number of elections. I find this to be very intriguing. If you added up the total number of popular votes that Roosevelt and Taft earned, over 50%. The argument here is that if one of them had just run alone, like no Roosevelt or no Taft, like one or the other, it would have been much closer. But a lot of people voted for Wilson because they split the votes. So Wilson benefited greatly from the fact Taft and Roosevelt ran separately from one another. Drewby, your question?
Yeah, how do you spell Wilson's first name?
Woodrow.
I had it down, but
All right, David, you crunched the numbers. How many elections?
56, and then 14.28%.
So 56 total elections.
6 elections. Right?
Yeah, Clay lost 3 times.
Clay Thompson.
So 14 point whatever percent.
Clay lost 4?
Yeah, I thought Clay lost 4 and then
24. He lost 1924.
He lost
Both
24.
of them lost 4.
1924.
30.
No. He didn't run in 1928
Yeah, he lost.
because that was John Quincy Adams.
That's
He
1820.
lost 30.
18.
He lost 1924, 1932, 1936.
Yeah, 19.
Yeah, he lost 3.
Wait, it said
Isn't it 18?
Alright, well, regardless, if we do, yeah, Clay lost 3. That's alright. Look, the point was a lot of elections. Clay and Brian combined to lose a lot of elections.
Isn't it 18?
Tomorrow, what we're gonna work on. Tomorrow, what we're gonna work on is talking about the defining moment in Woodrow Wilson's presidency, which is going to be World War I. Tomorrow. Alright. You guys have to go to your testing rooms. So good luck on your exams. What? No practice.